Graphing quadratic function. Quadratic function is the function that has x squared in it, and this is the standard formula ax squared plus bx plus c. So we're going to learn how to graph quadratic function of this form. First, we have to be able to identify the coefficient a, b, and c. As we saw earlier, those are the coefficients of the x squared. This is a, the x, this is b, and c is the constant term. So those are just numbers in the equation. Let's say if I have an example like this equation, y equals negative 2x squared plus x minus 9. A is the number next to the x squared, so it is negative 2. The number next to the x, that's the b, it is a 1 in this case. And the constant term is not 9, it's negative 9 because of the minus. What about if you have it like this, x squared plus 3? Well, the coefficient of the x squared, similar to the previous one, it is a 1. And there's no x, so technically b is 0. There is no coefficient of x. And the constant term is just 3. Now what happens if I mix it up, like 5 minus 2x squared plus 7x? Now in this case you'll notice that the x squared has a coefficient of negative 2, so it doesn't have to be written at first, at the beginning. So in this case a is negative 2, b is the number next to the x, so that's a 7, and the constant term, the sign of it is on the left, so it is a 5, not negative 5, it's a 5, positive 5. Now how can we use this knowledge to graph the quadratic? Well, before we do that, we have to remember how to factor. It's going to help us how to graph. So if I have x squared plus 6x minus 16, we learned from lessons before that you can factor the x squared to x times x, that gives you x squared. This number, this sign gives you that those numbers right here, they're different in sign. So one positive, one negative. And we also learned that this 16 represents the multiplication. So what two numbers multiplication is 16? Well, and the subtraction is 6. And this is from this sign, and this is this number. Now, could it be 16 times 1? 16 times 1 is 16, but 16 minus 1 is not 6, so it's not this one. 8 times 2 it is, because 8 times 2 is 16, 8 minus 2 is 6. But notice the answer is positive 6, so the 8 has to go with the positive. So those are the factoring. So it's a refresher. Now, before we start, what is quadratic? How does it look like? Well, it looks like a U shape, so it's called a parabola. It's a U shape called parabola. It could be facing up like a U or facing down. The point in the middle in orange is called the vertex, and it could be a maximum point, in this case like a mountain, or a minimum point like a valley. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis, so this is in red, point here and point there, those are called y-intercept. And the x-intercept where it crosses the x-axis, so those are my x-intercepts. Are called also solutions or zeros. Now, let's get to the graphing part. This is the fun part. First, what is A, what is B, what is C? Well, A is 1, B is negative 4, C is negative 5. How is that going to help us? Well, first, you're going to start with the y-intercept. The y-intercept of this graph in this form is always going to be the constant term, because it's where x equals 0. So it's always going to be 0, comma C. In this case, C is negative 5, so 0, negative 5, that's my y-intercept. Now, what happened if, what about the x value of the vertex? Well, it has a formula called negative b over 2a. We have to remember this one. So technically, you're going to flip the negative 4. It's going to become a positive 4, negative, negative, that's a positive. And you're going to take twice the value of a, so 2 times a is 2. So what is 4 divided by 2? Well, it's equal to 2. So the vertex is on any point on x equal 2. So this vertical line right here has the vertex. I don't know what's the y value for it, but this is the line where the vertex is. What I've got to do now is just to plug in the x equal 2 into the function. So if I plug in the x equal 2 in the function, I would get x, which is 2 squared, minus 4 times 2, and then minus 5. So all I got to do is replace the x with a 2. Now what is 2 squared? 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So what's 4 minus 8? That's a negative 3. And then minus 5, that gives you negative 4 minus 5 gives you a negative 9. So 2 negative 9, right here there will be my vertex. So this is called a vertex. All you gotta do here to remember the formula, negative b over 2a. Now the next one is how to solve this by factoring. That's why I reminded you of factoring. Two numbers, the multiplication is 5 and the subtraction is 4. 5 times 1. So you're gonna replace the numbers by 5 and 1. The reason the 5 is negative because the answer in the middle is negative. So if this is equal to 0, what makes this equation goes to 0? Well, all you gotta do is flip the sign. So if I place the x is 5, 5 minus 5 gives you 0. So x equals 5, that's one of the answers. The same way we do here, negative 1, that will be an answer because negative 1 plus 1 makes this one 0. So my x-intercepts are 5 right here and negative 1. Those are my x-intercept. Now all you gotta do now to make the U shape. The U shape is going to go up because this is my minimum point. So all you gotta do just with a pencil or this shape, make this shape goes facing up like a U. So that's it for graphing quadratic. Let's take another example and go a little bit more with the speed. So it's easier than all this explanation. Now graph negative x squared minus 2x plus 8. So all you gotta do first, define a, b, and c. Negative 1, negative 2, and 8. Now we said c equal 8. That's my y-intercept. So graph the y-intercept. And then we're gonna switch the b. So that's a 2 over twice the negative 1. So 2 over negative 2, you get a negative 1. And this is my line that the vertex is on. Plug in the negative 2 in the equation. So you're gonna replace the x with negative 1 and do the math. The 9. So negative 1, 9, that's my vertex right there. Now we're gonna factor this. Take the negative out and factor two numbers. The multiplication is 8, the subtraction is 2, is 4 times 2, and you make it equal to 0, so you get the x-intercept 2 and negative 4. So you graph those on the x-axis. So now it's gonna facing down. All you gotta do is connect those dots, and that's pretty much it for graphing. Go ahead and practice this one. Which graph represent the function negative x squared minus 3x plus 10? So I have 4 graphs. Which one of this represent this one? Well, by looking at the equation, the first number is negative a. That means it's facing down. So it couldn't be this one, couldn't be this one. So those are out. Now this is a 10, and we said this is the y-intercept. So 10 is right here and 10 is right here, so they both could be the answer. The vertex is negative b over 2a. 3 negative, make it a negative, that's a plus, and 2 times negative 1, that's a negative 2. So 3 over negative 2, that is negative 1.5. This is negative 1.5 and this is 1.5. So you notice it is this answer. So you could also continue to make sure it is the one, factor this quadratic, and you get it factoring like this, and you're gonna notice that the zeros or the solutions are 2 and negative 5. So that's how you know for sure it is this answer. Review these videos for more help, and hopefully that help you to graph quadratic. Thank you for watching.